All right, I think let's start. Let's kick it off. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our today's webinar session, Goodbye Data Silos, First Steps and Practical Tips for Data Mesh and Data Products. In today's session, we would like to inspire you to think about your first steps into a data mesh or data products approach. We will give you some tips on how to maneuver through the common challenges when establishing a decentralized data structure. And we will show you on how we can support you on a practical and technical level. This webinar is hosted together with our consulting and services partner, cimt AG, that has vast experience in the data governance and analytics space. My name is Hannah, and I will guide you through today's session. Before I hand over the mic to our two speakers, I would like to cover some quick housekeeping. As a reminder, all attendees are in a listen-only mode, but you can ask questions during the webinar through the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar panel. I will receive those and address them at the end of the webinar. Yeah, and this is it from my side for the moment. I wish everyone a great time in Goodbye Data Silos, First Steps and Practical Tips for Data Mesh and Data Products. Ben and Nick, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, and good morning to everybody, or moin as we say in Hamburg, no matter what time of day it is. My name is Benedikt Edelmann, and I'm a BI consultant at cimt, and I've been working as a data engineer since 2016. And we have, as cimt, have more than 23 years of experience as an IT consultancy with some focus areas where business intelligence and analytics is the most important for today, I guess. This year, we have expanded our carefully selected partnerships to include OneData to fill the gap for a tool that is able to support the data mesh and data fabric approach. So today I'm here together with Nick from OneData. Hi, Nick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick. Very happy to see so many people around. I'm a solution engineer at OneData, and today, later in this presentation, I will lead you through a short introduction on how you can leverage the OneData product builder to support your data mesh initiative.
Thanks. Yeah, as an IT consultancy, we have seen a lot of concepts in the data area over the last years. One of the most promising is certainly data mesh, but the approach always seemed very theoretical to me as a data engineer. So the goal of this webinar today is to give you some good starting points if you like the idea of data mesh. So let's have a look at what's in it for you today. At first, I will start and motivate and explain the data mesh approach as an introduction. And next, we will look at some concrete actions you can take to start with data mesh approach. And then Nick will explain you the OneData understanding of data as a product and show you the OneData technology and how it supports the approach. And in the end, we will look at some subsequent steps and summarize our webinar for you. And as Hannah said already, you will have the chance to ask questions. But first, you are asked now in our poll. You can start the poll now, probably. You should now be able to see our poll and answer our short question. That is, how far are you on your data mesh or data product journey? Is it completely new to you, the topic? Do you know what it means, but you did not go any step further? Did you already start some pilot projects, probably, maybe, or are you already using it actively? Okay. Yeah, thanks. This gives us a good indication what currently occupies you in the field of data management. Thanks for your participation. We can see there is a clear majority for you that it's known to you, the approach, but you don't know how to start. And that's exactly what we would like to cover in this webinar. So let's start. In the past and nowadays, the approach to build an analytical data platform was always a central approach. We, as cimt, for example, also help to build data warehouses, data lakes, or lake houses. And this was also the case in my simplified example from a former customer here. Let's imagine we are a retail company and we had one central data provisioning team. Let's call them Team 42. You can see them in the middle here. And the team mainly consisted of data engineers and should connect and standardize data from source systems to that central data platform that might sound familiar for you. And there were, of course, also other teams like Team 99 here, which relied on Team 42. And they comprises mainly data scientists and had the task to forecast customer orders for purchase planning in this case. But Team 42 had already connected the data from many source systems, like you can see here for customer or product source systems. But they are an agile team, so they did not connect all objects, all tables. And then one day, Team 99 urgently needed another table for the machine learning model training, but Team 42 was fully occupied with requests and also with operating the applications and platforms, so they could not help Team 99 in this case. Needless to say, Team 99 was not happy, so they found a workaround with their technical skills as data scientists, but they still had a lot of work to do with checking data quality, cleansing, and preparing the data, which cost them a lot of time. Let's say they spend 80% of their time with anything but data science stuff. And this workaround, of course, missed the actual architecture. And from my experience, I can say that this is the starting point for messing it up, because this will happen more and more often and in the chaos. Okay, what is my point here? This central approach has limitations. And one of the main problems here is the scalability of central data team. Besides their platform issues, they have a lot of business requirements. And those business requirements are always very time consuming, because for every question, they need to contact and coordinate with the domain experts to understand the data. And this problem is reality for larger enterprises especially. And the key to solve this is to make data accessible, usable, and interoperable for everybody in the company, so that the people who know the data are the same who prepare the data. And yes, this is exactly the data mesh concept, what it is about. So let's have a quick look as a recap for you at what it is. We saw in the poll that most of you know already what it is, but just have a quick recap. First of all, the approach is a socio-technical paradigm. And the core idea behind the concept is a domain-oriented decentralization for analytical data. And most of you probably know then those 4 core principles you can see here. And yeah, they enable the ownership of the business domains, the usage of data as a product, then an extended self-serve data platform, and a federated computational governance concept. So data mesh, in other words, is like a microservice architecture for data. Each domain team provides their own operational analytical data as products for all teams on that self-serve platform. And they must adhere to some basic governance rules. And this way, the domain teams can interconnect data like via an API in a microservice architecture and perform cross-domain data analysis on their own. You might know, or you can already see, data mesh is more an organizational and cultural challenge in combination with technical requirements. So what is needed to tackle this challenge and to start with data mesh if you like the idea. The first thing that needs to be done is an inventory of your current situation in terms of data landscape and culture. This will help you to estimate how far your destination is. And for an objective assessment of your landscape, you can find several data maturity models on the internet, like for analytics, AI, data management, and so on. And you need to identify which suits your unique needs and requirements. And then you can find questionnaires for those maturity models. And you can, of course, adapt them for your characteristics and requirements. For instance, for a data mesh approach, you can assess the maturity models for data governance and quality, which are both important ingredients of data mesh. And yes, this process is, of course, a very individual step, but it will really help you to identify your gaps and which actions you can take then. Meanwhile, you can already start with something like an experimental project, because initially you need to find out whether the data mesh approach is applicable for your company at all. So you should try to find it out. Really just do it, just start. And here, do not overanalyze from the very beginning. For such an experiment, I recommend you to choose a data project that has impact on central business objective, but has lower risk and a high feasibility. And then ideally, you should have 2 cross-functional teams with mainly data experts from the domains. And you will probably also need a data engineer as a technical expert. But it is very important at this point that the team mainly consists of those data experts. Please avoid here pure data engineer teams. And certainly you will need to have the management on board, because later on the cultural change will not be possible without the management. And of course, you also need someone who pays the experiment. So you need to convince the management with the data mesh idea and especially the benefits for your organization. Together with them, you can and you should define criteria for success in order to measure the effectiveness of your experiment. Yes, in your experiment, you will already learn a lot about what is needed to efficiently work together. And one important point is to agree on some standards and conventions like language, nomenclature, or some meta information for your data products. We as cimt, for example, we have developed a proven standard framework for logging and monitoring processes. And everything you learn here and you find out and agree already should be documented in some way. This is a good start, and while guidelines can be adapted later on if they change. And also you can enforce those conventions later on by processes, which is what computational governance is about. Yeah, for me as a data engineer, the temptation is strong to start with the technical challenges of data mesh. For example, how can the architecture look like? What components do I need? How do they interact? How can I define data quality checks or integrate access management and so on? But this can end up in almost ignoring the needed mindset shift, which is the biggest challenge of this approach, and therefore needs the most of your attention and your effort. So you need to pay close attention that you do not get lost in the technical details, because as you know, the devil is in the details. So focus on the cultural change and support it by technology. Let's take up this last point. We know that data mesh is no technical challenge in the first place. It's not a product you can just buy, and especially the domain ownership is no problem that can be solved by technology. But there is technology that can enable you to do data mesh. For such a technology stack, in my opinion, it is always important to have a low complexity and a high usability, because you want to convince your business users to contribute, and a nice tool stack will motivate heavily, of course. And at this point, I will hand over to Nick, who will present their AI-powered data product builder. And we will see how a ready-to-use platform like OneData can enable you to build data products and support your data mesh approach by this.
Great. Thank you very much for this first practical tips how to start our data mesh journey, Ben. So we've briefly covered the main fundamentals of the data mesh concept now, and I'm now here to show you how you can take the first steps and how we can support your journey from a technical perspective. So we already highlighted the importance of the socio-technical change, and we are very happy to have established partners like cimt who support us on these efforts. But we as a software company really support the technological aspects of your journey. So that means while we enable all the 4 principles of the data mesh concept, we purposely focus on helping our customers to treat data as a product. And in a nutshell, data products are reusable data assets that are built to deliver a trusted, reliable, and quality assured set of data for a very specific purpose. So in other words, data products are pretty much everything that your Excel sales table _new_ version 2 is not. A data product integrates data from all its relevant source systems, processes it, ensures the ownership and compliance, and makes it available to everyone at the organization with the right access permissions. This way, data products shield the consumers from the underlying complexity of data sources by decoupling those data assets from their systems. And this makes them discoverable and accessible. Additionally, data products are made up of their metadata. They bring sample data and contain code for reproduction, so you can really understand what belongs to the product. And my manager has a very resonating metaphor for this. Imagine a data product as a yogurt you can take off the shelf in a supermarket. The yogurt itself is the data, but it's the packaging that makes the yogurt a ready-to-use product. You can read on the label where it is coming from, whether it's still in good quality, who is responsible for creating it, and what are the ingredients of the yogurt. So you might now ask yourselves, why do I need yogurt? And to be honest, this is a very fair question. One particular benefit of data products that gets highlighted over and over again is that businesses which treat data as a product or employ data products more generally can streamline the development and delivery of reliable data for their businesses in less time. And the Harvard Business Review, for example, suggests that companies which treat data as a product can reduce the time to implement new use cases by up to 90%. So the reason why most data initiatives are consuming so much time is that data collection historically never started with specific use cases in mind. At some point, we all just started to collect data and to store them in different and diverse systems. And back then, no one really thought about concepts of data governance. And I'm really sure that questions like who understands the data or is responsible for it, or can I even trust my data, are very familiar to you. In turn, this put a tremendous amount of pressure on data leaders, who then started to spend millions of dollars or euros, respectively, into data people who only end up using their time, up to 90% of their time, on non-value added tasks like data preparation. So in turn, that means that all the value we see from data today comes from this 10%. Just imagine where we could steer our efforts if we could reclaim more of this time. At OneData, we want to enable both the data experts and the data business users to reclaim their valuable time, and our data product builder is purposely built to do exactly this. At its core, the AI-powered OneData product builder supports your business with a very distinct set of capabilities. And in short, we help you to connect, discover, prepare, and deploy your data, while we make sure that you stay updated on any data quality issues and leverage your existing IT stack by seamless integration. Okay, so now all of this might sound a little bit too abstract. So I now want to show you practically what all of this comes out down to when we say build, manage, and share data products. I will now guide you through how we can leverage the robust visualization capabilities of the One Data Product Builder for comprehensive data asset exploration, how we do efficient data product requests, and how to use the powerful workflows to build those products. And eventually, how we foster a data culture by collaboration through the provision of reusable and discoverable data products. To make things a little bit more tangible, let's step into the shoes of Juan, who is a supply chain analyst. And Juan is very well versed in working with Excel. He frequently relies on reports, and he is even able to create simple analysis in the company's BI tool. However, he doesn't really consider himself a data expert. Now, we will transition into the live presentation of the One Data Product Builder where we will assume the role of Juan. And I invite you to pay very close attention to how effortlessly we can navigate this tool to access the data and extract valuable information, all without the need for extensive data expertise. So here we are now on the homepage of the One Data Product Builder, and there's lots of information. In the middle, you can see there's a Kanban style table where we can see all the data products that are currently requested, in development, or even in review. And apparently, we should come back later today because our inventory stock levels table is ready for review, and we can now check whether it fulfills our requirements or not. In the top, you can see that there are 19 recently updated data products. And we can now skim through this list and look if anything there is of interest to us, because we are tasked with a very specific order from my boss. And basically, he said, we need to know with which countries we do business with. So we can just look through this, but it doesn't really look like there's anything here that meets our interests. So what we will do is we will navigate to our data product marketplace. Like on a real marketplace, this is where consumers and producers meet. And like on a real marketplace, I can just simply go around and see if anyone offers what I'm interested in. What we see here is probably the most iconic feature of the whole One Data Product Builder. And this is something that we're really proud of. And this is our data landscape. What you can see here are all the data products across our whole organization depicted as little hexagons. So each and every hexagon is one data product. Currently, they are clustered by their respective business domains, meaning that we have some data products in business development, business analytics, and production, and so on and so forth. What we can do now is we can now zoom into our data landscape and see how the clustering changes slightly. So we see that within production, we have 4 data products in materials and 2 data products in products. If I zoom in further, I see who owns the respective assets. And on the lowest level, I can of course see the data product itself. This way, I could now look through all the data assets across our landscape and see if something is of interest. But this would be very inefficient. So instead, we leverage our AI-supported search functionality and look for something. Our boss told me that my colleague Patricia has worked on something in the past which might be of interest for me. So I just simply type in her name, and One Data now looks through all the column names, all the table names, and even the metadata, and is able to find the content that Patricia is owning. So apparently she worked on something called the historical client orders. Well, this could be a very good starting point. So we inspect the data. Here we can see that we have a client ID, a product ID, some order quantity, and a date. This is already good, but unfortunately, there is no information about the client's whereabouts. So this is not really what we are looking for. So we can close this. Now, let's assume that we look through all the available data products, but we don't find what we are looking for. So what we need to do is we need to do a new product request. Here on this side, what we can do is now we fill in all the information that a potential data product developer needs to have in order to build our product. So first thing we do is we give this thing a name. We select a data product owner group, the business domain our data product belongs to, the entity, so in other words, what is the data product about, a group of product builders, and of course the update frequency, because after all, my boss said they need to update it, have an updated version on a daily basis, and we enter a short description of our data product. And we're already done with the most basic information that a developer would need. Now, if we're a little bit more experienced in data product requesting or data in general, we could even go into more details and add some column names, for example. So we know that we need a client ID and an address. So this is what we could enter here. For now, let's just assume that all of this information already is sufficient. So we just hit send request and we go back to our homepage. So we've seen how Juan was able to seamlessly explore all the data assets and how effortlessly he was able to request new data products. And the One Data Product Builder in this case really serves as the key component that integrates all the company's data, dismantles all data silos, and simplifies the data discovery for the business user. Now, let's transition into the role of Luisa, who is a data engineer, and we will delve into how she now utilizes the One Data robust workflows to construct the requested product. And keep an eye on how we can perform all of these tasks seamlessly within the platform without the need to navigate elsewhere, ensuring a very frictionless workflow. Okay, so we're back on our homepage now, and since the stereotype is that developers like to work in dark mode, we switch to our dark mode to emphasize that we're now Luisa, the data engineer. And Luisa can now see that the client master table is in the requested pane of the Kanban. So she just simply goes into the request and she can now understand what needs to be done. So assuming that she already understood what needs to be done, she then switches to the raw data map. Here we get a very familiar view. Again, we see our data landscape, but this time we're not looking at only the data products, but instead at all the data across the whole company. Currently, we have a very technical perspective, so we see where the data is coming from. We see that some data comes from our PostgreSQL. We have some data from MSQL and even some data coming directly from OneData. But we are really more interested in a business hierarchy, so we choose this instead. So you see the clustering changes, and now we see all the data across our company clustered by our business domain. Again, what we could do is now we could look through all those assets individually and manually, but again, this would be very inefficient. So this time, when we leverage our search function, we look for everything that corresponds to client. Our map is now highlighted with all the assets referring to clients, and we also have a list right here. So we just skim through this list and see if anything catches our attention. And actually there's something called client address right here. So client address, this sounds very good. So we just inspect this a little bit further. We zoom in on the asset and let's inspect the properties. So in the properties, we have all the meta information of this data asset. We can see who created it, when was it created, who owns it, and all of these things, but we are really more interested in the content. So we switch to our columns and we see that the data table contains a client ID and in fact, company country, city, zip code, and address. So this might be the perfect starting point for this. So let's inspect the data in more detail. And as expected, we have our client ID, country, and the city, but also, unfortunately, a lot of blank cells and missing values. So how can we be even sure that the data we are using is of high quality after all? Well, what we can do is we can leverage the so-called quality layer in the One Data Product Builder. So we just zoom out so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. We now want to get a visual representation about whether our data is of good quality or not. So now when I click this quality button, what you will see is all data assets which fail their data quality checks will turn up in red, while all those which succeed their respective data quality checks will show up in blue. So we see there's lots of blue in our map, which is pretty good, but unfortunately, the one data asset we are interested in shows up in dark red, so indicating that there's something wrong with our quality. We can even inspect the data quality right here, and we can see that from 9 checks, only 4 were successful, but 5 failed. We could even go into some more detail and see exactly what was tested, or even get some issued samples right here to really inspect on detail what has happened here. However, for now, we're absolutely fine with just knowing that this is not what we can work with. So let's pretend that we skimmed through our entire data landscape this way and that we found what we are looking for. Let's further assume that we already started some work in the development process, because I now want to bring you very deep into the developer perspective of the One Data product builder platform. So we navigate back slightly and we see that my colleague, in fact, has started the development right here. So we see that the client master table is now in the development stage. We go into the request again and find our way into the One Data project. A One Data project is basically a dedicated space where the whole project really lives in. So in other words, this is really what makes the data product a data product eventually. It stores all the credentials, the connections, and all the way to manipulate the data, like the workflows. Here, we can see that one of our colleagues already built a very sophisticated workflow. Currently, One Data features roughly 150 processors, which allow you to do some easy data manipulation tasks, so more elaborate statistics, for example, but also some very elaborated and sophisticated machine learning models. Right here, we can see that we draw data from 5 different sources indicated in orange. We do some very simple multiple column renaming in an Excel-like experience, I would call it. We do some left joins right here, leveraging our SQL technology. And in the very same step, we also have some more elaborate Python data pre-processing, leveraging our Python engine right here. We could go into the depth and breadth of the processes here, but for now, let's just assume that this is exactly what we need. So after building our process, we simply hit save and run and navigate back to our home screen. So we have observed how Luisa was able to handle Juan's request, right? She was able to look through the necessary data, assess the quality, and eventually harness the workflow within the platform. By maintaining our operations within the One Data product builder, we can now significantly expedite the end-to-end data product building process and contribute to a better decision-making by constantly checking the data quality. So we have made some significant progress already. Now that Luisa has successfully built the data product, let's return to Juan. And let's assume he has already reviewed the data product and now wants to assess and work with it in his preferred tool. In this segment, I really liked to highlight how we can promote collaboration and cultivate a data-centric culture by offering reusable and discoverable data products. Back on our home screen, since we are Juan again, we switch to our light theme again. And as we did previously, we navigate to our data product marketplace over here. This time, we leverage the search capabilities and simply look for the table that we requested, and it should show up right here. Brilliant. There we go. So this is exactly the table that we just requested. So this is the client master table. So let's inspect what we did. And here we go. We have a client ID, we have global location, we have phone numbers, we have the longitude and latitude. So we have everything we need. So what we can do next is we share this data product to a connection outside of One Data. So let's say, for example, we want to leverage Tableau or PowerBI, and we simply can use a direct SQL access to draw the data from One Data into Tableau, for example, and start analyzing. And if Juan did that, he would find out that we have most business with in Germany and the Netherlands. However, for now, I want to draw your attention to something a little bit different, because in the beginning, we said that data products promise to expedite your data delivery processes. And the reason for this is that the data product itself is a ready-to-use, discoverable, valuable asset that others in your company can use and build upon. And this is exactly what happened here. Next to our client master table, you can see that there's a forecast of client orders. And this forecast actually builds upon the client data, the client master table, and many, many other data assets. So now imagine the forecast of the client orders went terribly wrong. Basically, we're completely out of stock. Imagine what you would do today in your company. How would you be able to find out where in the data pipelines anything went wrong? In OneData, what we can do, we can leverage the so-called use case map. And here we can look at all the so-called edges, so how the lineage is or how the attributes or data assets are connected. Everything you see on the left side is the data input, and on the right side is our forecast of client orders. This right here, by the way, this is our client master table. So how now do we know what went wrong? Well, as we did previously, we can simply switch to our quality layer and see that from all the data assets, apparently, this data product, the train model support vector machine, suffers from severe data quality issues. So what we do is we change to our owner level and we see that our colleague Michele is responsible for this data product. So we can immediately send him a message and ask him to please fix this data product because our forecast was off. I hope you agree that you've seen how straightforward it is for Juan to work with his product from within the data product marketplace, and how providing reusable and discoverable data products on the centralized marketplace really serves as the launching pad to integrate data as a pivotal component throughout your organization. I hope that I was also able to show you how, with the OneData product builder, companies can integrate all their systems, visualize their data discovery, and significantly reduce the time to build the reusable data products. Everything you've seen here and everything you've seen before is underpinned by robust AI support, so you can really focus on the socio-technical change that is needed for your data mesh initiative, while we support the data product building technologically. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you, Nick, for your presentation. Yeah, this was really impressive. Let's summarize what we heard so far. Yeah, we started with the problem of scalability of a central data team. While data is increasing and is becoming increasingly important, and how data mesh can solve this issue. Then we had some ideas of how to start with data mesh, like a well-defined experiment, just do it, to inspire people. And most importantly, we had that it is crucial to find your way to focus on the cultural change and support it by technology that people are willing to use. OneData, as we saw, is a great example of such a technology because it enables you to build your data products and supports your data mesh approach with a user-friendly platform. Additionally, we as a consultancy can help you to find out how your technologies meaningfully fit together. And then finally, I would like to take a look at what comes after such a first successful experiment. One important point is that data mesh can only be successful if people participate. Therefore, they first of all need to know about the platform and be motivated to use it and start their own data projects on it. This will need a lot of active publicity in the beginning. And you can present, for example, your successful experiment to the whole company, maybe also with specific, with audience-specific emphasis like ease of use for non-technical people. And you should also use different channels for communication, such as intranet, Teams channels, or you can even prepare advertising videos for that. To go on, you could therefore try to find some arbitrary people and facilitate their daily businesses or their demotivating grunt work to, and then try to identify their problems and add value together with them by solving those problems. This way people will be able to understand the approach and earn trust in the data and the platform. And this is an important success factor. And then it goes back the cycle to point number one, where you need to talk about this success, and at some point it will promote itself. In the end, you need to convince people that they want to use the platform themselves, or even fear to be outsiders if they do not participate. One of the most important success factors is that employees do not only want, but also know how to use the data. So first of all, you could offer a data literacy training to be able to investigate, to prepare, analyze, and visualize data, and even master the methods and tools that are necessary. And the training should ideally be for the whole staff, but it can be customized according to their needs and be with specific examples and exercises to make it tangible for everybody. Then an essential next step is the data governance concept that needs to be established across the domain. And what we need here is a collaborative effort, and that involves all the domain and data platform stakeholders. And one concrete and important next step is to first you need to identify the contact and responsible persons, and you need to convince them and to start to define governance policies together and consistently adapt them in an agile way. Data governance as a whole can be very complex, and there are a few more tasks here. One is to define roles that are needed, like a domain analyst, data product developer, and then to clarify the responsibilities there, so that is clear to everybody who exactly does what. For example, who needs to ensure data quality. And equally important is to establish standards for your data products. How should they look like? What requirements need to be fulfilled? For example, how are the data products secured? Which meta information is needed? Or how should it be documented? And in the end, you need the various organizational units to follow similar data governance practices and to, in the end, create interoperable and shareable data assets. And then my last point for this webinar, the cultural change again. For real cultural change, it needs a lot of effort. And therefore, the management must endorse and support the initiative and align it to the enterprise business strategy. Therefore, a clear vision of the top management is needed. And this vision, more importantly, needs to be communicated and openly and transparently. So what are the goals and the hopes of this approach? And this again goes hand in hand with the promote and motivate point, because it needs to be clear to everybody. Yes, for an organizational change, an agile and iterative approach is recommended. So go step by step, establish a steady culture of communication. And the goal here is to promote a sense of responsibility and quality. Well, you see, there's a lot of work to do, but everything depends somehow on your individual level of maturity. So go back to our first steps, start with an assessment, and you will find your way. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope our webinar was inspiring for you somehow, and you got an idea for your first step with data mesh and to become a data-driven company. Well, with that, I will give over to Hannah again for our Q&A session.
Exactly. Many thanks, Ben. Thank you, Nick. It's now time for questions. So if you have them, you can find the Q&A section in the panel of GoToWebinar. Feel free to send them over. I have already received one, and I think this goes, well, to Nick. How much expert knowledge is needed for creating data products with one data?
That is a very fair question. The level of data expertise really depends on the complexity of the data product, I would say. In the demo, we've seen that there's many things that you can do to build a data product. If it's simply about renaming some columns, for example, I think this is possible for everybody, even with very few data manipulating experience, but it can be very complex very easily. So for example, if you're trying to do something like the client orders forecast, you would probably need the experience of a data scientist. So in short, it's really up to how complex the data product is. Our motivation is to make it as easy for everybody as possible.
Great. And there's one question: what if my organization does not perfectly implement the data mesh governance model? I'm not sure how this is structured, but I guess, Ben, you can probably answer a little bit the question.
Yes, sure. Well, I think there is no perfect. For me, data mesh is not a fixed and a proven concept at this point in time. And of course, there's always room for you to find your own way with the governance. So I would say it's perfectly okay if you find your own implementation of the governance model. There is no strict answer to this, I guess.
Okay. And I have another question. Is this tool kind of competitor tool for data catalog tools like Colibra, or can it used as an add-on? Very interesting question.
Very interesting question indeed. So it's not meant to be a competitor. I think we'd rather, well, we have some overlaps. We also have some very distinct capabilities. So we do have some data cataloging features for sure. However, what we also do is A, the visual component, B, the ETL component. And our plan is to integrate metadata, for example, from Colibra, for example, so you can really use both tools in together and really harness the power of both of the systems. So it's not a competitor, but it's rather complementary.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question for Ben. How could a first test of the model, I guess the question goes into the direction of the first steps you mentioned at the beginning. How could this look like very practical? Do you have an example?
You mean the experiment then, the first experiment? Yeah, I don't know how it's meant, but well, I would really try to find I would start to find a use case for this. So which I meant was which has benefit for your organization, yeah, with low risk, as I said already, and then, well, you need to find the sources that are necessary for your use case. Let's say, like we had it in the beginning, something from product system and customer system, and then you need to find those people and bring them together. And then, as Nick showed, for example, if you start with one data, you should then connect those two sources, let's say, and then, yeah, start finding out what you need and start finding out what it takes to build your data product, your use case. I hope this answers the question somehow.
Yeah,
if not, you can, yeah.
To start with the first use case and see how practical it is to use data products is probably a good start, and will gain the attention of the business users. Perfect.
Just do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Exactly. I can't see any more questions. So that's great. I would like to invite you to our launch event next week. We have here a QR code, but you can also find the event on the One Data website. And yeah, please register. We will hear from our customers how they are using One Data currently and how it helps them actually to navigate through the data landscape. We also have an expert thought leadership panel. So for those of you who would rather hear about, where we're heading to in the future, this might be interesting for you. So please feel free to reach out. We will share the recording in the end. And I see that we have even more questions. That's perfect. We will actually address them after the webinar, so we will actually contact you afterwards. I hope this is fine for you. And please raise your hand if you would also like to receive our presentation, so the slides. And if we have some feedback here, then we will share even the slides with you. I hope this was helpful. Many thanks for joining us today. And yeah, I hopefully see you soon. Thanks
everyone for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.